Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Life of the Lost. I'm Sam.
And I'm Megan.
And this week's episode is sponsored by Brown Lab Media. Brown Lab Media is focused on creating and promoting original content, personal brands, businesses, or anything media related by people of color. So when you have a chance, feel free to check them out, www.brownlabmedia.com. All right, moving on to this week's episode. Would you like to...
Yeah, I think first of all, I'd like to say sorry for being missing. Oh my gosh. Sorry for being MIA for the past 3 weeks. We've just had so much going on, and on top of it being a holiday season, we've had a lot of big decisions to make around Supay. For those of you who don't know, we also have a clothing brand, and we're just kind of going to get ready to amp things up for next year.
Yes, definitely. And with that, a lot of time and energy is spent to really take a deep dive into getting to the meat and potatoes of what our brand means to us. I think that's the most important part, and then from building outwards from the inwards.
Yeah, and so today is Christmas, and it's not going to be released today, but happy holidays to everybody listening. And I know sometimes, even before COVID, Christmas and the holidays can be really hard. Just being out of touch or in touch, with families, different dynamics. It's very interesting, and a lot of personalities and things come out during the season. So just hope everybody's kind of just taking a breather and taking some time for yourself. But I think that's kind of what we were going to talk a little bit about today, is kind of just the holidays. And when you grow up, especially for me, because we celebrated Christmas, Sam celebrates Hanukkah.
Hanukkah, yes.
And so for me, running down the stairs Christmas morning, just being super excited, looking at all the presents under the tree, just, it's just that exciting, like, anticipation of what's going to happen. And then going to different sides of the family and celebrating there and seeing all your aunts and uncles and all the enthusiasm behind Christmas, the games, the food, just everything is super fun. And I think as you get a little bit older, you kind of start seeing all of the hard work that goes into that. And you have to be kind of on the other end of that. And so, like I always say, I still feel like a kid all the time. And so having to go and buy a Christmas tree this year. This is the first time I've actually bought a real Christmas tree. And like the expense behind that was really funny too, with just being like, going in and purchasing it and then just being like, okay, how much is this going to be?
And you're like, wait, what?
Should I put it back?
Yeah, like, because, first initial thought is like, that's ridiculous. And then, they tell you that, for this year, I guess, trees are rare. It's harder for them to grow. There's a shortage. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of makes sense on top of, your New York mentality. If you're from New York, you're always a skeptic when it comes to buying things off the street. And
this is on the corner. This isn't like Minnesota where you get to go into like a tree farm and you get to go.
That would be cool. I would have liked that. But
maybe next year. Because I'm sure they have that in upstate New York.
Of course. But
we're kind of going about this, and we didn't tell you how much it was. It was $100.
Yeah.
For a tree that's maybe like 5 foot tall. What'd you say?
Yeah.
There. Which was just, I don't know what I was thinking. It's not like I thought it was going to be $20, but when I heard $100, I was
at least like just $40, like maybe like $60. But I guess it is all averaging out, because it was, we had to buy a stand that was like $15, so it was like 100 like
plus tax.
And maybe 120 and change.
Yeah.
So I guess it was $40 or $50 extra than what I initially anticipated.
Yeah. So it wasn't like bad, but it's like it's the, what is it, like the action of having to go get it, and like you said, it was at the corner, which is definitely different for me too, because we've always had a fake one growing up, the kind you kind of just, it's in a box and then you just ploof out pluff, whatever you want to call it, out the little arms in the tree. What is that called? I can't even think of what it's called right now. I guess kind of like arms in the tree, and then you put the ornaments on and things, and you don't have to worry about things like watering it. By the way, we need to water it.
Yeah, I gotta check it after this. Make sure. Last time I checked, I think was last night. I think it looked pretty watered.
Yeah.
I'm concerned. I hope it didn't like seal up.
Yeah, we learned a lot about trees that day.
Yeah.
Which was really cool, because when you think about it, when he cut it, we noticed that there was 8, what is it called? 8 kind of
rings.
Yeah, rings around it. So that means it's 8 years old. And so here we are complaining about something that took like 8 years to grow. That's work. That's time, you know? So I guess when I thought about that, at the end of it, I thought, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a once a year thing, so.
Yeah, decorating it and stuff. It's just about having fun and kind of creating those memories for yourself, because I think as we get older, that's what we have to do. As a kid, all of those memories and all of those things, all of those just fun times that you get to look back on they were created for you, and now being an adult, you're creating that for, your family, or you're creating it for yourself or your partner or whoever, you're spending the holidays with. And I think that's all part of growing up and having to keep traditions or leave traditions. And as we start growing older and start having our families for ourselves, like our own families, I suppose, it gets kind of tricky, and it feels kind of weird, I think, to kind of grow up and have that kind of dynamic and that new role of traditions.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And I think too, in the moment, I guess you never, from like, you kind of hinted at a little earlier, but you never really feel like an adult, even though you are an adult. I guess being an adult doesn't feel like it's an adult. I feel like an adult until, like, I guess you're past like that young adult phase, and then you're like, wow, like,
I don't know if you ever,
or will you ever like grow into your mindset where you are labeled in society compared to how you feel in your mind.
Yeah, because my mom always says she still feels like a kid all the time, but she takes on those responsibilities, obviously, which is kind of where we're at. It's just kind of all these new responsibilities and kind of looking back at childhood memories and kind of having to create that atmosphere. And it's a little odd to me, because it's like you have to create this happiness a little bit, which is, kind of a handful in itself, let alone this year just kind of being crazy and not being able to go home for the holidays. So it's a little hard this year, definitely. And I think earlier today, I looked back on a journal entry that I wrote in 2014 when I was down in Peru spending Christmas there. And that was really interesting to look back on. And it was talking about how we were having turkey that day, and my dad was really funny, and he was joking around, like trying to mimic a turkey at the table, and everybody was laughing, and my brother came in late, and he had asked for a knife. And my dad and my brother don't really get along, and I think there's a lot of animosity there. And I think the reason behind that is just because my brother Alex, he's very feminine. He's very like there's materialistic, I feel like. So some of those things matter to him that my dad really, it doesn't matter to him at all. So when my brother came in, he asked for a knife, and my dad flipped out, and he was just like teasing him and mocking him and like, you're asking for a knife? Oh, you want a knife? And I don't know. It was kind of a weird like Christmas that year. I mean, we were all sitting there having a lot of food, we were together, but it was just definitely, that family animosity was still there.
Yeah. It's weird how certain times of joyous celebration can really like bring out the deep-seated just roots of problematic issues in a family.
Yeah.
So
especially buying presents and things like that. I know the day before that, so it was Christmas Eve, I went down to the main square in Cusco, and I just wanted to spend like 3 hours getting everybody gifts, but I didn't. I was, I think, there for maybe 6 hours looking for gifts. And what happened is I had this, first of all, I'm like incredibly indecisive. And so I was like looking at all of these different things and had these all ideas that I wanted to get. I should have just got the money and like called it a day. But I wanted to make it like special because I was down there and I had never been down there for a Christmas before. And so I had I think 2 gifts ready, or maybe it was 1 gift. And I sat down to kind of look at something, just kind of go through these clothes that were on the ground, and I was like looking and talking to a vendor, and I stood up and somebody took my bag that had the gifts in it. And it was a bummer, because I just remember thinking like, on Christmas, how could you do me dirty on Christmas, and just thinking like, oh, it was just a weird day. And then I remember that night, so they celebrate right at 12. And right at 12 at night, the second it turns 12, they come in and they were knocking on my door. I was in my room, and my sister gave me a hug, and she gave me this little purse that said Cusco on it. And I had just shut my door because I was like, I don't feel like I'm in the mood to celebrate, because I was really homesick at the time. I had been there for that was about pushing 2 months right there. and just the feelings behind that. I was having a hard time being able to be happy, I suppose. And what I didn't know is that they have fireworks there too. And so the fireworks are going off, and my brother came up, and he was saying, Megan, like, come out. But I was just too bummed out. So there's a journal entry, just me saying, like, I really wish I felt happy enough to come out. And so I guess those kind of lingering feelings of not being home kind of are similar right now. Being in New York City, and my whole family is, celebrating at home. And it's just, it's just a different feeling, I guess. And each Christmas that goes by, it's new. It's just new responsibilities, new things that we have to think about. And I guess it's like a transition, I suppose.
Yeah. And to look at things, I guess, optimistically, you wouldn't want the same thing over and over again, right? I don't know, as much as you'd like the idea of spending time with your family or during now, like every holiday, would you kind of grow in that retrospect, being able to plant your own feet somewhere and mm-hmm. make something and do something with, your life. And in terms of the physical area that you live in can really change a whole life.
Yeah, that's true.
Unfortunately, that's one of the sacrifices too, that, being away from them, you won't be able to have those Christmases that you used to have.
Yeah.
Well, which also makes those Christmases that much more special too.
Right, to be able to kind of look back and to know that it once was that. And I think just as you get older too, you have this different mindset, because now you have a job. You have like adult money you have to spend, and you have to, with that comes responsibility too, because you want to make sure you take care of everybody, but then you have to think about like your budget and things like that. Yeah. And it's just a little bit more serious. And so it's not, Christmas isn't that fun, like waking up in the morning, running down the stairs to your presents because you're carefree and you just want all the presents. And it's definitely eye-opening.
Yeah. But you also take, a lot of pride and a lot of joy in creating that experience for other people.
Yeah.
For a younger generation.
Yeah.
Which is awesome within itself, because it makes it, in retrospect, even that much more amazing.
Yeah.
Because you were there once.
Yeah.
And now you're on the other side.
Creating that joy. Yeah. Which is really cool. And that makes me so happy, because you just know how happy they are, kind of just passing that joy down. And, you still, it reflects, right? It makes you happy as well. It's just a different kind of happy. And I think just growing up and transitioning into, like, I guess, adulthood, we go through things like that. And I guess it's just another perspective of Christmas. You kind of understand. I know my parents, holidays were a little rough. Towards when we got older, you kind of started seeing the money aspect of it kind of play in there a little bit more. And so that's kind of rough too. It's not as, I guess, happy or cheerful as when you were a little kid being carefree.
Yeah. I feel like it goes along with the realization that your parents are not perfect.
Yeah.
And that they're human just as you are, and that they make mistakes just as you do. Mm-hmm. And that kind of veil gets pulled up and off your eyes, and you're like, wow, mm-hmm. that's a real deep reality check. But that's life.
It helps you kind of appreciate that though too.
Yeah.
Because no matter what, it's not like we were struggling or anything. We were spoiled to death. But I do know that there was an aspect of trying to keep up with other parents and them getting their kids really nice things too. And, just making sure that we had, we were stable and we had all the things that we needed or thought we needed, as a kid. So I think, it's a very interesting time. It's kind of a lonely time being here. But I also feel like I'm a little used to it just because I've been here. And I guess going back to taking responsibility of trying to build a new life. Every single time I go back to Minnesota, and I know I've said this before, I've had to understand that it might be the last time I see anybody. And I know the last time I was in Minnesota for Christmas, I remember looking at my grandma Rakis, and she died this year now. I remember looking at her just thinking, like, this is going to be my last Christmas with her. And kind of sitting with it and getting really emotional about it, but just kind of understanding the significance of that, the importance of it, being there at that time. And it was true, because I didn't get to go home last year, and then she died this year. So it's kind of, for me, maybe that's why it's a little bit easier, but it's still sad. It's still hard.
I guess that's the best case scenario. You're able to kind of just like plan for that feeling, ultimately for it to transpire, which, you know, that's something you can't prevent. You know, people die. Everyone's mortal.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has a shelf life.
Yeah.
And but, you know, you know, planning for it, understanding it before it happens, I think is important too, because you kind of prepared for it mentally. And I think a mental preparation is very important, and I think underrated to a certain extent too, in any kind of planning.
Yeah.
To always understand worst case scenarios and just try and make sense of it in your head, just in case something like that were to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You can be like, okay, well, you know, I kind of knew that this would be a road that I would probably walk down, depending on if certain things panned out the way that they did.
Yeah.
And so okay, you know, I see it. All right. It sucks, but I understand.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it puts you in a different kind of mindset. And sometimes I'm thinking like, okay, am I just able to turn things on and off sometimes? And maybe after this, I'll just bawl my eyes out or something. I don't know. But sometimes it puts you in a interesting kind of fog, I suppose, for me. Because it's like 1 minute, if I don't think about it and I'm constantly moving and doing things, I'm okay. But today, I was calling my grandma, on my mom's side, her mom, and she was really bummed out today. And I guess I don't really, when I talk to her, I don't ever hear her sad. And I heard her sad for one of the first times today. And when I called my grandpa, he was obviously really emotional. This is his first Christmas without his partner, his wife. But I mean, I like to use, I guess, the word partner because like they did everything together. They were just life partners. And so that's got to be hard in itself. For one, having this whole COVID thing happen, not being able to really be around family, and then for two, you know, your partner's
well, that's
gone.
like the difference, I think, too, that a lot of people is like understated is like COVID and how you can't be with your friends or your family.
Yeah.
Especially during a time where somebody lost somebody so important to them.
Yeah.
It's like, can't even imagine. You're just kind of like sitting at home. You're kind of like locked in, especially like in an older demographic. You know, it's even more incentivized for you to kind of stay home.
Yeah.
And that just kind of sucks, because you're just left with your thoughts, and it makes something that could have been a lot easier that much more harder.
Yeah.
But, you know, if, you know, after time moves forward, I think, you know, it will maybe only make him stronger.
Yeah.
Because you know, he's forced to kind of sit there and deal with it, whether he likes to or not. So at the end of the day, I guess you'd want to, I guess, sit there and deal with it. But I guess, you know, like you said, he does have some people come to the house, which is probably a lot, very, very helpful for him.
Yeah. I feel like we're at a time where it's kind of like the torch is being passed, right? Especially for you too, you know, when you think about your mom, you know, being off this earth, and just thinking about the traditions that you want to keep, you know, within your family, and the things you want to pass down. And that's so weird to have that responsibility.
Yeah. And I guess speaking about what you were talking about earlier, about not thinking about something, kind of putting it off, you know, I guess like that question kind of goes out to you guys too. What I'm about to say is just, I relate to that a lot. I do push things aside, like feelings and sad feelings, angry feelings, because I know that whether or not they're true or not, they are real, but they can also stop me from keeping progressing on the things that I want to do, which is, you know, write music and get that thing laid out. Because, you know, it's hard when you have all these feelings and thoughts in your head, and it makes you feel like you can't do anything because it's just so overwhelming. You can't think about anything else.
Right.
And it just keeps beating you down with the same repetitive ocean of like thoughts. So I tune them out. And I kind of have to make a judgment call, knowing that repressing feelings too is also a negative thing. And
it comes with its consequences later.
But at what point do I say, like, you know, fuck it, and just, I'll worry about it when I can worry about it. But right now I can't, because I just don't want to in that retrospect, not because I'm just avoiding it. It's just because I need things to get done on a certain timeline. I'm really incentivizing deadlines recently in my life too. And I just can't think about it. And you're right. It very well could just blow up in my face, and I might just have a mental breakdown when I'm like 50 or something, or
But
40.
I also think it's a good thing, because I think that's what stops people from doing things is the fear, most of all, but just feelings in general. It's like when you get into your head, you kind of just can't move forward, you know, especially just being anxious or depressed. Once you get that thing in your head, that like negative voice, it is hard to climb out of that hole.
Yeah. I mean, like, I definitely, you know, I've struggled with like depression and just really negative thoughts that come with depression. And up until recently in my life, I somehow just eliminated that mindset from my life, because I came to the realization that there are things more important in my life that need me here, and I can't go anywhere. And because of that, it's like those feelings became somewhat obsolete. I'm not going to say that they're not there, but I can't get that low anymore, even if I really wanted to. The rationality kicks in, and I'm just like, no, you can't even think like that. It's not even it can't even be a possibility. Like, I understand that. Like, I understand that you're sad right now, but like that, I like, you just can't. Sorry.
Yeah.
You can feel sad,
but that's such a good thing though. And so it's kind of like interesting.
So I'm like sitting there just like, just like an empty, like there's no release, but like you understand why there's no release. So you're just kind of like, well.
But is there not a release though? Because I feel like a lot of the time, and more recently, a lot of your emotions have been going into music.
Yeah. It's just new in general, right?
Yeah.
When you can't get that low when you're used to getting that low.
Yeah.
Only for it to kind of just hit there, and then it just kind of going up, and you're just kind of like, what?
Yeah.
Also, you know, understanding too why your body and your mind are doing that to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like it's just interesting, a very interesting mentality that you're in during those moments.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I mean, it's not to say I don't feel sad. I really do, but I guess those really real negative, you know, thoughts are just not plausible, not conceivable as they once were.
Which I think is such a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think it takes, like, I know it's been kind of like a little bit rough for me recently, but I think you always tell me that, you know, you're exercising a new muscle. You're doing things differently than you once were. And so it's going to take time. You know, you might revert back to all of these things that you used to tell yourself or that you used to do, but that you're just training. It's just like, you know, going to the gym and you want better arms or something. You're not going to get it overnight. You're going to have to just keep training your arms day after day and switching it up and trying to figure out like what workouts work best for you and which ones don't, and which ones, you know, are too strenuous. And like, you know, there's so many things that come with that, because with the balance of growing new muscles, you're also balancing your nutrition and your diet.
Yeah, for instance, like, I'll give you a perfect example. So there was like a year that I really was like trying to like learn music and trying to learn the electronic, you know, Logic Pro and all that information that comes with that. And but at the time I was very heavily into the gym and physical fitness. Mm-hmm. And it took like a year of a transition, but I came to a stage where I needed to excel in music to the point where I would have to, you know, dip my gym workouts in time because of the sake of saving time to be able to spend more time on progressing and learning more about music. And that thought within itself, as easy as I said it right now, is very, very hard because, you know, it hit another line too, which was in, you know, middle school and high school. I was overweight and I had a weight problem, and I just, that I really forced myself to ingrain it into my life, working out and taking care of your body and being fit, to the point where I spent so long, years compiled, and I was able to maintain the same body type. Even after eating meals that weren't that healthy for you, I was still able to maintain that. So because I had that, but I worked for that years and years and years of running, years and years of nutrition and understanding how my body works. Only then was I able to say, well, now I can actually take a seat back from the gym, even though it was really hard, because it was just like, you know, trying not to breathe a certain way when you always were living that way, because you don't want to die, because if you don't breathe right, you're going to die. So that took a lot of mental gymnastics trying to have my mind okay with that. Mm-hmm. Like, and then I had, but what's the interesting thing is I had to cut back on certain foods, and I had to change my diet in retrospect, because I went from doing like a low carb diet, high fat, high protein diet, to intermittent fasting, where I would have to eat through windows, and that would make me feel good, because I started to learn that I liked working on an empty stomach. But it's still a work in progress, but that transition period was really hard to grow, and I'm still in that transition period to a certain extent. Right now, I guess I'm in the period of like trying to maximize the time that I work, even during that time of not even going to the gym. How can I even maximize it even more? That's what I'm trying. That's the current state I'm in right now. But yeah, like you're saying, you know, it's hard.
Yeah.
To keep that muscle working.
And I don't think that, I mean, for you, like, I look up to you for being able to do that, being able to take your emotions out of situations in general, whether it's like a conflict, whether it's, you know, just like your daily, you know, anybody can fall into those kind of moods, those kind of tricky mood swings of maybe you wake up and you're sad. But I think for you, you might wake up and you might feel sad for a moment, but you understand the significance of time. You understand that you only have this window before you have to go to work. You understand that if you choose to stay in bed and be emotional today, you're not going to be able to work on music. And the downfall of that comes with so many things, right? It comes with you feeling bad because you couldn't do work, you couldn't progress in that way. And then maybe when you go to work, maybe your mind isn't straight because you're working on somebody else's dream, right? You didn't get to work on yours.
Exactly. Like today, you know, that we have it's the holidays and I don't have work and it's a Friday. You know, I did this yesterday too, but this morning it was a little later than normal, but it's all right. I got up and I did a few hours of music and I progressed the song to where I feel pretty good about it. Obviously, it still needs work, but because of that, I was able to take a break and I was able to play like a little bit of Call of Duty, just game a little bit, because I felt good where I was, and I was able to enjoy. I can't enjoy without, to a certain extent, without. That's another thing that I have to work on too, right? Kind of really incentivizing working before I can relax.
Yeah.
Even when I don't have work that I have, like going to physical work, but just keeping that in the process of like a day where I don't have work is something too that I have to work on as well.
Yeah.
Because always like you maximizing and now you're there. It's like, okay, so how can we maximize more?
Yeah.
And
without burning out.
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
kind of hard,
it's
because it's one of those things like I don't even know what time it is right now, but I'm so hungry. And it's kind of like, you know, us being up in the morning and having to, you know, you got straight to work. I had to make a few like phone calls. It's Christmas, to, you know, meeting with a friend this morning. All these things are like important, but then also having like a smaller gap to work, and then kind of having, you know, going into a podcast and thinking about having to work more. It's just, and try not to get burnt out as you just keep going throughout your day and going through the motion of doing things, which is another thing of balance too. Because I would love, you know, when I called my grandma this morning, she's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I've been working since 5 this morning." And she's like, "Oh, you should really not work today. It's Christmas. It's a holiday." But I don't know. I think it's a day off, and I want to take advantage of that as well.
Yeah, and that, you know, each side is. I understand both sides. Part of me like wants to not do anything, but then, like you said, right, that deeper, like soul wrenching, knife cold feeling in the pit of your stomach, that just is like always there, and knowing when you're not, when like that, you know, when you like, oh man, I should do this, and it's like, dude, like that, it's like different, right? It's like you should, something that's a lifelong like thing that you're trying to do, compared to like, I don't know, I should do the dishes. I feel like a little bit different,
because those can wait.
Yeah,
but
and
things
because
like this,
you love it more,
can.
you feel you care about it more, and because you care about it, that feeling of coldness when you're not doing it, when you know you could, when you know your mind is kind of there, instead there's a difference, right? Because when you know you can't, when you know you're burnt out, you're like, like I'm just gonna rest a little bit, knowing that but it feeling right too.
Yeah,
feeling that being resting is a right feeling, you know.
Which is the hardest thing, I think, for me right now, is to actually just unplug and rest, because I don't. It was a few weekends ago, we had a Saturday to ourselves just to decompress. But there's no way I could have decompressed at that time, because we're trying to watch a movie, and every single time we're doing something like eating or watching a movie or just anything going through the motion, I'm just kind of, my head's not there, because all I want to do is work. It's just like, it's a kind of like a frustrating thing for me right now, is just trying not to, because as much as it sounds like it's work all the time, like work, it's fun for the most part, like when you get to do certain things, obviously, like,
But that's the key of it, right? Like, a lot of people, they want the end result. They want what maybe they see in musical artists or business CEOs, leaders of things that they love, and they say, I want to be like that.
yeah,
But then they try it, and then there's things, and they're just kind of like, wow, this is damn, I don't want to do this. This is kind of hard. But it's like, well, how do you think you're gonna get to where you want to be?
yeah,
You think that these guys loved every aspect of what they did to get to where they are?
Yeah.
No. Do you think, looking back now at their career, and say, wow, I'm so thankful that I did that. I'm so thankful that I muscled through that, because now I can sit back and look at this thing that I created, and I'm just happy that I can pay somebody to do that shit.
yeah,
I don't gotta do that anymore. That's what my boss says.
yeah,
He's like, fuck, I'm so happy I don't gotta do that shit anymore. I'm like,
cool, because
all
you
right,
do.
well, I'm gonna go do that shit
that you don't want to do anymore.
see you in a few hours. And just, but he worked for it. He earned it. He
Yeah.
got to that position, and
Which is nice, because it's those little wins, when you do get into that position. And I think that, like, it's maybe that things like that I need to look at more. Kind of like getting somebody to do the laundry. Now we send the laundry out, which to me is just mind-boggling, because I would have never thought. Growing up, we had our own washer and dryer, and you're not gonna have somebody do it for you. Like, who the hell do you think you are? Like, I guess that's kind of the mindset that I had growing up. And so I was like, I'm never going to have anybody do that. But now I realize, like, how long it takes to do the damn laundry, and I don't want to do it.
but now you understand why I was so against learning electronic music, why it took me such a long time to really just decide to do it, because I hated with a passion the production. I didn't want to produce. I didn't want to make these sounds. I didn't want to learn the different plugins. I didn't want to do any of that. I didn't want to know what EQing is. I didn't know about high end, mids, lows. I hated that. It was so stupid, complicated. Just get somebody else to do it. I don't want to do that shit.
Right.
But then I'm like, realized, like, dude, your favorite artists do that shit.
Yeah. Or once had to.
No, they do. For me, in my field, they do.
Yeah.
They always will. And
They don't have anybody who they have help.
Unless you're like David Guetta, unless you're like Calvin Harris, then you can literally pay. But at the same time, you can't.
How much of it is you then?
But I mean, you can't in retrospect, because music production is your bread and butter.
Yeah.
So you're gonna, like, you know what I mean? It's weird. Like, but for little things, right? Like for mastering, probably they don't do mastering. They have a sound engineer do that.
Yeah.
But I guess it just goes back to my point, where there's things in there that I don't want to do, and I had to learn, and it was shitty, because I felt so demoralized. Like, how the hell am I gonna learn all this? I don't even want to learn all this. It spoiled my passion for creating music, because I'm like, damn. This is so annoying. Like, I have something in my head, and I can't even, like, figure out these buttons to, like, get it to, oh god.
Yeah.
And you remember, I was like so frustrated, so demoralized, so like, I don't even know if I want to fucking do this anymore. And
But
then
you know what's funny about that? I never heard you complain really like that. You kept that in your head, which is actually kind of interesting, right? Not as if you were withholding those feelings, but you knew that you had to keep moving on. Like, there were hard times, yes. There were times where you successfully made like a 30-second kind of like a really cool intro to something. Didn't know really what you were going to do with it, but you didn't really show that struggle as much as you're saying that you did, like your internal thoughts, which is actually kind of nice, because
do you know why?
I mean, I can guess.
It's okay. Guess.
I don't know. I think that you might have not done it. You might have not like shared those thoughts. It's because maybe for one, you speak it and it comes into a reality. And once you say those things, it's kind of like you kind of can't get back, kind of can't swallow that again. And then you talk to somebody else about it and they're like, maybe they agree with you. And they're like, maybe you're not, maybe you shouldn't do this. And like once you put that into the world, into the universe, it kind of just might trickle down. That's my guess.
Yeah, no, and you're very much right on that, because yeah, and you know, to explain a little further too, it's like on top of that, no matter how frustrated and demoralized I got, somehow, always, I came back for more.
Yeah.
I wasn't done. It might have taken 2 days, 3 days, 4 days for me to just not do anything, and then I was like, all right. I'm ready again subconsciously to give it another crack.
Yeah.
Because
But there was nobody,
do you know
which
why,
I guess
though?
that just is surprising in itself because there's no one there who is telling you like you should go back.
But-
None of your friends.
but deeper,
nobody.
You know why? Because it's like, what the fuck else am I gonna do realistically? Like seriously, what the fuck else am I gonna do?
Yeah.
I mean, I got my degree in design.
Yeah.
I mean, I can get a job there, right? That's to pay whatever it is that I decide to do
Yeah.
with my career. I already wrote off that I don't, any job that I take, that's not where I want to be. I mean, I'll ride the system. I'll be a good team player and do my job diligently from 9 to 5 or whatever. But
Yeah.
but that's not my goal. So therefore, it's not my goal. So what am I gonna put my time to when I'm not in work? And like that, right? And it's like, well, you have two options. You know, you either completely abandon music and try something else, or you just sit with it for a little bit and let it marinate and truly, right? Like truly, if it's truly something you don't want to do, Sam, you're just gonna let it be and you won't touch it again.
Yeah.
And then that acceptance, the 100% acceptance, it clicked one day. I don't remember what day, but it clicked a certain time where I was just like, I truly accepted my life as a musician instead of this kind of just being like, oh, maybe I'll phase out of it. Maybe I won't. Maybe it's my teenage years.
Yeah.
You know, turning into adulthood, and it's just kind of lagging on in front.
Right.
And then I realized, no. One, this is a part of me. It always has been, and trying to deeper than that, trying to understand yourself and understand the root of it, which is you. I hate all these thoughts. I hate all of these ideas in my head, and the inability and the frustrating fact that I can't get it out the way I see it in my head keeps me going. And I just believe in myself, because at the end of the day, you're gonna die. Everyone's gonna die, and so I might as well just keep fucking pushing and pushing, because I don't want it any other way.
Yeah.
And that idea turns into a belief and turns into faith, where I'm like, I believe that if I put enough time into it and I really want it, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. And you know, I just gotta, but you can't think of it like a long term. Just day by day.
Yeah.
Okay, what do I gotta edit now? What songs are where do I, you know? Every day I go to work. I do my design. I do what I gotta do. I put on my tracks. I listen to them. During lunch, I take break. I jot down notes. You know, 30 minutes left of work. Bosses go home. Everybody's kind of go home. Just to it out, do a little work, jot down some extra notes, because I want to have it fresh in my mind. So when I go home, I can kind of marinate, sit on it, rest up my mind, know what I have to do right when I wake up. Okay, boom.
Turn it on.
Turn it on, yeah. Get my coffee.
Yeah.
Understand that I need a little time to get up, so I watch some
a little
YouTube.
bit of Raiders.
And then I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
now enough living in the dream world. I gotta work now.
Yeah.
And you know, we'll see what happens. But I enjoy it because it gives me purpose. You know, whether or not your version of succeeding in a day or a week or a month might differ, it's still something to look look back on and feel proud of,
Yeah.
that you
That
did
you
what you
tried.
did. Exactly. And that you had purpose. You're doing something with your life. You know, you're not just waking up and saying, oh, let me try and watch a movie before I go to work.
Yeah.
Let me go to the gym before I go to work.
Yeah.
You know? And
Which is just, yeah, in itself, I think that's such a heavy thing, because I find myself getting very lost in, not in, yes, in what I'm doing sometimes. And I just need to sometimes like take myself out and look at the bigger picture. And I know sometime this week you told me, all right, if you stop doing everything that you're doing right now, what did you say? What would you be doing? So you gave me 3, like, yeah, maybe that's what it was. Like, what would you be doing if you could do anything? And it just kind of like led me back here.
exactly.
And then, sorry, I'm just having like this big, huge mind, like, opening things like while you're talking too, because I think, like you said, it's not what started me feeling out like the South American culture, feeling about like adoption, feeling out like myself and my identity and things like that. What started that was the Inca cross. And so after we had like a really big conversation sometime this week, kind of going back into my files, like where I kind of started with all of this, and finding out that, yeah, you did sketches. You have like a tattoo of the Inca cross. There was a meaning behind that one time, and like, why'd you forget that? That's kind of your foundation of everything. And looking back and just being really happy that I found that, to kind of understand, like, every single time I get lost in anything I do, to look back, and that's the foundation of this. That's the foundation of like Supay, and like where I'm at, where my head is.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I did the same thing with music. I had to start and I had to go to the deepest depths of the musical experience, only to realize, okay, I've seen it. Now I gotta go back to right where I started,
Yeah.
with all of this new acquired information from diving deep into
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
Exactly what you did. You
Yeah.
dived deep. You did research. You made a lot of calls. You got what you needed to get done, and now you can say. And then you got lost.
Mm-hmm.
You said, who is this? Who am I? What is this? Well, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Only to realize, damn. Well, if I just did the turn 3 pages before
Yeah.
the original start, if I
Yeah.
just that was great. Well, actually, because I learned this, well,
Yeah.
and because I did this, because I felt like this. Oh,
Yeah.
wait, this feeling that I went from there.
Yeah.
Oh, I can put it there. Oh, that fits
Yeah.
perfect. And you know, like that's
Yeah.
and that's just, you know, just the tip of the iceberg. But
Yeah. And now making sense of it all and having the right tools to do that, because
exactly.
at the time it was really hard, because I had all these ideas but didn't feel like I was adequate enough to like put everything together. And now the reason I went back all the way is because we're making a style guide for Supay, and I actually want it to be a little bit more than a style guide, just kind of like an all-around guide to like the brand, to us, to where these thoughts came from, because Supay, like the meaning behind it, you know, it's not to me just you know, the underworld, like the god of the underworld. It's not just that. There's like it's so much more complex to me. And I think that what's better than to have like this really beautiful book, this really beautiful designed book, you know, after looking at other style guides and thinking about things that I like, and just being a designer in general, being able to have those tools that, you know, like you said, you did all of the work before, and now you're putting it together, and just thinking of how cool that's going to be, because like that's like an extension of you. You can go back to that and just say, this is where my heart and my work is. And every single time I might get lost in my head and let some negative energy get in, just go back to that. And how cool is that, to have that memory maybe on your desk, or that actuality, not a memory, that very existence,
Yeah.
you know, right in front of you all the time.
Yeah. And, you know, even that thought of the god of death, you know, is so important. You know, it just gets more important to me every day, every week that goes by, because I love how mysterious like that realm is. And I believe, you know, and I'm not like a Satanist. I'm not like, oh, worship the devil. No, but I'm curious about death. about the unknown specifically. And I'm curious more about that than per se if we're talking religious and we're talking like gods and faith-based things. I'm more interested in the darkness and in the underworld than I am in the light and in the above, because I feel when you think of the word dark and darkness, it's mysterious, it's unknown, it's big, it's vast, it's a void, it's empty. But within that emptiness, there is something that you don't know until you're there. And I guess, just conceptualizing that feeling that I have and conveying that, via sound waves and via fabric and textiles is something that I'd love to try and do.
Yeah.
And I'd love to try and every step, every product, every iteration can get closer to this unknown, which is the goal is it's a weird cycle, right? The more you know, the less you know. And that's the beauty of it. Not like, cause you'll never uncover the darkness per se, but the beauty is that maybe you can.
Yeah.
And what will come from that will be like a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And,
just kind of
it's
making it
eye-opening
what
too.
you want to, because it's interesting that you kind of bring up like Satanists and like the devil, and it's funny, right? Because like the Quechua people never thought of Supay as like the devil. They begged for mercy.
And what's interesting? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
okay.
off, but that's like human nature.
Yeah.
What humans don't understand, they fear, and that's why the people are like, they don't understand something. Oh, it's the devil. The devil did this.
Yeah.
This is the devil's work.
Right.
Like,
without even understanding like the full meaning of like what it is, and like the different realms and world of like Inca mythology, and just how cool that is to kind of dig deep in general, and to try to understand what Supay actually is. There's Uku Pacha, there's Kai Pacha, and there's Hana Pacha. And like Hana Pacha is more of like the heavenly, the sky, and Kai Pacha is the realm that we're in right now. And so kind of looking at that and seeing it, for what that is too, and how beautiful that is, and to just kind of relating it back to, your ancestors or the earth, or like Mother Earth in general, and like how awesome that is. For me, I'm really proud to be indigenous. I'm really proud, to have these like storylines, embedded in me, and now just getting to learn them all again. And it's a really amazing feeling.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And like you was talking about, Mother Earth and how where we come from, they're more involved spiritually in that retrospect of being, in tune with the land. How real death is a part of that real like world topics of Mother Earth, the water, the seas, and death. That is very a real conceptual thing, because all things die.
Yeah.
And it's just humble thoughts that really make you realize how insignificant and significant that feeling is in retrospect. A lot of contrasting and contradicting, but hopefully you follow that wavelength of just knowing that there are things that are bigger than yourself, and that understanding that you'll never understand, but also understanding that you're not going to give up trying to understand.
Yeah.
So
just kind of trying to find self, find identity, try to find out what we're doing here.
Yeah. So just a little I guess sneak peek of just the mentality and the thought processes going forward when it comes to next year's stepping stones and next moves that we're gonna take the brand, and we hope you guys enjoy them.
And stay tuned, because we'll keep everybody updated.
And so like we said earlier, hope you guys have a happy and healthy holiday weekend, and we will see you next time on Life of the Lost. All right, guys. Take care. Peace.